announced earlier Wednesday, the NCAA Division I Council has approved the immediate elimination of the National Letter of Intent program, a historic shift to the recruiting landscape. Established in 1964, the National Letter of Intent program existed as the formal binding agreement between student athlete and the school. The NLI, as they're calling it now, the National Letter of Intent, will be replaced by a new financial aid agreement, which will provide many of the same functions as the National Letter of Intent. Welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. I'm JJ Jurjevich. Joining me this evening is our fabulous co-host, Larry Gardner, the PA voice of the Rome Emperors, and our fabulous producer, Wayne Ridenauer in wonderful Memphis, Tennessee. You can catch us all at ATL Prime Sports on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, and of course, Apple and Spotify. Personal X's at JJ Get You One for myself, at RWY Junior for Wayne, at LG for Real though for Larry, and at Corder Todd for TC Todd Corder, who is supervising some fall ball umpiring tonight. Wayne, how you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm doing all right. The storm down in Florida, the one that's fixing to cross, so what is it called? Milton? Is that right? Yeah,
Milton.
well, it has caused a change in the University of Memphis' schedule. They're supposed to play South Florida down there Friday, and they moved the game to Saturday at 2:30 at Raymond James Stadium. I'm not sure if that's going to make too much of a difference if it's really bad. So that may get moved to a whole nother week. How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. I'm not as well as the Major League Baseball playoffs, though. Each division series has been extremely exciting and entertaining. The Tigers won 3-0 earlier Wednesday afternoon, taking a 2-1 series lead. The Yankees-Royals are tied at 1 apiece going into Wednesday night's games. And, of course, the Mets-Phillies are playing right now. Last I checked, Mets had just taken a lead. They could finish out that series tonight. It's a late lead, but they're up 2-1, and the California teams, Dodgers and Padres, are playing Game 4 Wednesday night with San Diego up 2-1. Larry, how you doing, man?
Man, everything is well up here in beautiful Bartow County, Georgia. We've got beautiful weather. Kids is running me ragged because of sports schedules. If you're a parent at one point in time, you know how that is to catch one that's got this going on, this one going on, this one going on, and with 5 boys all in school still, and it being homecoming week, it has been cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs up here at Adairsville High School. But, man, it's been great. I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. Enjoy those brief times because they blink and they're gone. But
Oh, yeah.
it's been great, man. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, JJ. What else we got going on tap for the show today?
Now we're going to have Dave Cohen on the Dave Cohen Report, getting ready for the Old Dominion versus Georgia State game this weekend. And, of course, we're going to preview 6 of the best football games in our Pick 6. 2 bye weeks in the last 3 weeks for the Georgia State Panthers. They play host to the Old Dominion Monarchs Saturday afternoon at 3:30. With that being said, we bring you the Dave Cohen Report. Dave, thanks for coming on. How are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Just getting ready, as you said, to get back on schedule with Georgia State football. The Monarchs of Old Dominion are here on Saturday afternoon, and we've had a bye week we've had 2 bye weeks in the last 3 weeks, and we haven't left Atlanta in the first 5 games of the schedule after opening up at Georgia Tech. It will have been 4 straight home games. But then the gauntlet begins starting next Thursday night in lovely Huntington, West Virginia, when we play the first of 4 straight on the road, starting with a Thursday night game at Marshall. But, before we talk Marshall, they've got to take care of business with Old Dominion. A couple of weeks ago, it was great to go into the bye week after that fantastic win over Vanderbilt. And then, of course, we all saw what Vanderbilt did with Alabama in Nashville this past Saturday. But on the other end of the stick, it's not pleasant to go into an off week after getting manhandled by Georgia Southern, your in-state rival. And so you had an extreme high coming off the Vanderbilt win, and you had a low coming off a home loss to Georgia Southern. So we'll see. Coming off the off week on the schedule. It was an off week on the schedule. It was not an off week at all from practice. As a matter of fact, they practiced same schedule they would if it had been game week, getting ready for Old Dominion coming up on Saturday afternoon.
What were Coach McGee's thoughts on those 2 bye weeks in 3 weeks?
Well, you know, coaches, a lot of times they're not going to comment publicly too much about the schedule. But again, our schedule is really odd this year, as I said, not leaving Atlanta for the first 5 games, Georgia Tech on the road, and then 4 straight home games, followed by 4 straight road games. And then it's home, road, home over the last 3 weeks of the season. I'm sure, and I can't speak for Coach McGee or any of our coaches, but I'm sure they would have loved to have spread or used that second bye week and kind of had that in their back pocket for a little bit later on in the season. You know, maybe after the 3rd road game, you would love to have another bye week heading into the final stretch of the regular season. But for Georgia State, starting with Old Dominion, it's a stretch run through November 30th when we play Coastal Carolina in the final regular season game. There is no off week other than the fact that you got a short week next week. You play Thursday night, so you are off next weekend. You know, there's no game next Saturday, obviously, but still, I'm sure they would have loved to have used that bye week a little later on in the season.
Yeah, break them up a little bit. Georgia's bye week, just using it as an example, it seemed like they split it kind of right in the middle of the two really tough stretches of the season. And looking forward to, I mean, as a player, you got to say, boy, you know, we're well rested. They may get a little healthy, but boy, you got a long Sun Belt stretch the rest of the way, and it's just a grueling schedule.
And there's one non-conference game in the 4-game stretch as well. We got to go up to Stores and play the Huskies of UConn. They're a lot better this year than they were when we beat them a year ago in Atlanta. So, you know, throw in a trip to UConn with trips to Appalachian State. And because of the hurricane that went through there a couple of weeks ago, we will see, do we play that game in Boone? Or do they move that game? I'm not sure what the condition of, the stadium at App State is, whether or not it's in condition to host a football game right now, and what it will be like in a couple 3 weeks when we're there. You know, I thought offhand, well, maybe they move it to Charlotte, come down the mountain and play in Charlotte, or play in Winston-Salem at Wake Forest, or agree to play the game in Atlanta. And, you know, that way they're assured of being able to play the game under normal circumstances. So I think some of those details are still being worked out. But between playing at Boone, at Connecticut, at Marshall, at James Madison, not in that order, that's a tough stretch right there. That's why this Old Dominion game really, I know you hear it sometimes, take on a little bit of added importance. I mean, really think about it. Would you rather head out on a 4 straight games on the road, 3-2, or 2-3?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. And you talked about, and you really a perfect segue into what I was going to ask you. You know, you've already talked about how you go through this high and this low with these bye weeks being where they are. Your schedule is going to be kind of like what we saw with the Falcons the other week, where they were coming off of a gut punch and not being able to come through, and then a quick turnaround and being able to pull it off with New Orleans, and then another quick turnaround, you know, where they play on a Thursday night and get a win there, of course. How important is it to get these guys back into rhythm quickly so that they can kind of flush what happened at Georgia Southern and get into that rhythm so that you don't really think a lot about what not only what's just happened in the past, but where are we going to play, and are we going to be doing the Texas two-step here, there, everywhere, you know, and in the mind of a young college athlete that's so fragile, you know, you want to make sure that they get back in schedule, back in routine, back in the swing of things as quick as possible.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you say that, because when I was at practice this past Monday, as Coach McGee is walking off the field after practice, we always record one of our sponsored practice reports for the radio. And that's kind of the way I led into it. It was an off week on the schedule for guys like me, the radio crew, and the game day workers, and it was not an off week for anybody inside the circle with our football program, from strength and conditioning to training staff to the GAs to the coaches. They stayed on schedule as if they were going to play a game on Saturday. Exactly to your point. Yes, you got to try to put that game out of your mind, as they say. You said they got to flush that game. I think that's why they would have loved to have played this past Saturday, given themselves an opportunity for a quick bounce back instead of having to go basically 2 weeks without playing. But yeah, they kept a regular schedule as if they were going to play this past Saturday in every facet across the football program, from coaches, like I said, to the training room, to strength and conditioning, to academics. It was a regular week of practice. The only difference was there was no game on Saturday.
Interesting. You're listening to Dave Cohen, voice of the Georgia State Panthers, right here on ATL Prime Sports. You can find Dave on Twitter at GA State Voice. Dave, got a couple extra curricular activity questions for you, but before I get to those, let's talk about the game on Saturday. How did the Panthers come away victorious? What's the game plan for Del McGee look like?
Well, what sticks in the back of my mind is, and I know it was last year, but we lost a heartbreaker up at Old Dominion last year, led the entire ball game and lost it on the final play of the game on a quarterback keeper. That was huge. The loss was big for us. We would have, ultimately we would have had an 8-win season instead of 7, based on the fact that we won the Idaho Potato Bowl. But it was a huge win for Old Dominion because they had 5 wins going into our game. So that was their 6th win. It was the last game of the season. Lose, no bowl game. Win, you're going to a bowl game. And ultimately they pulled it out in the end. So I don't know, a lot of players on Georgia State's team were not here last year, so they don't have that memory of that last regular season game last year. The radio crew does, because we were there. And according to Coach McGee, we're going to see some similarities to what we saw against Georgia Southern. And, Old Dominion has been playing a couple of different quarterbacks. For example, they lost to Coastal Carolina this past Saturday, 45-37. They still managed to score 37 points in a loss. And the quarterback was Colton Joseph. Had a pretty good afternoon, 3 touchdown passes, a rushing touchdown, and 1 interception. But with 3 starts under his belt, Georgia State has also had to get ready for Grant Wilson. So right now, Georgia State, are not sure which quarterback they're going to see come Saturday afternoon. They've got a pretty decent couple of running backs led by Devin Roach. 86 yards rushing, a touchdown in the loss to Coastal Carolina. And Isaiah Page had 8 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown in the game against the Chanticleers. So, I think that the first thing we're going to look at, because this was most evident in the Georgia Southern game, the play along the lines. I mean, Georgia State only rushed for 29 yards in the Georgia Southern loss. That's another thing. This past Tuesday at our weekly media day session, Coach McGee said, and these are all football terms, we got to get off to a fast start. Our guys up front have got to get a good push. They've got to work in tandem. They've got to play against Old Dominion, not like they played against Georgia Southern, but like they played against Vanderbilt. And the running backs have got to hit those holes. Whether it's Freddie Brock, whether it's Savion Wilkerson, Michael Dukes, Jordan Ford, we got to establish the run. You're not going to win a lot of football games if you run for only 29 yards, unless you've got a fantastic quarterback who's just slinging it to receivers all over the field. And I have all the confidence in the world in Christian Veyer, who's at about 60% completion rate. And he's got some favored receivers led by, Ted Hurst, who had the big touchdown catch in the win to beat Vanderbilt. but we got to be able to run the football. I mean, you're never going to be 100% balanced, but if you're only going to rush for under 50 yards, you're going to have a hard time winning the football game.
Yeah, any day of the week there. You got to control the clock. It's so crucial. I say it in the broadcasting booth, as I'm sure you do all the time. If you're a team needing a win, control that clock. It makes it a lot easier. Shorten that game, and it just makes it a lot easier to win a ball game when you can grind the clock and run it down. Dave,
the other key stat right there, JJ, and Coach McGee and I talked about this on his pregame that will air on the radio this week, and it's a stat that I keep up with all the time on our broadcasts, and that's how are we performing on third down opportunities?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are we the problem with Georgia Southern was way too many 3-and-outs. And of course, when you fall behind, you can't afford to really run the football that much because now you're battling not only Georgia Southern's defense, but you're battling the clock as well. So we had way too many 3-and-outs. But if you're converting, and I think right now Georgia State is 22 of 55 through 4 games on third down opportunities. Obviously, you want to be a little better than that. You'd love to be 55 out of 55 on your third down opportunities. But all kidding aside, if you're plus 50%, 45 to 55% in your third down opportunities in any game, well, that means exactly what you said, controlling the clock and keeping your offense on the field.
Yeah. I watched some games this last weekend, and I think that a lot of those running backs actually have way more yardage than shows on the scoreboard. But what they don't realize is that running from, towards the sideline does not count for yardage towards your first down. If they would just turn left or right occasionally, they could move the ball forward.
Yeah, you want your guys to be running north-south. East-west really does you no good unless you've got a guy who can get to the outside and then turn north and turn on the jets if he's got that kind of speed.
Yeah,
and make defenses pay. But those guys are few and far between.
Yeah.
They really
Dave, I
are.
want to ask you a quick couple questions. I know it just went down today, but your thoughts on the NCAA eliminating the National Letter of Intent?
Isn't it funny you mentioned NLI, and the other big topic is NIL? What is it about those 3 letters that encompass college athletics across the board nowadays? With the transfer portal, and I was just mentioning this to somebody yesterday because I've started to see popping up on Twitter from various players that they've announced mid-season that they're entering the transfer portal. And I was like, well, why would you do that? Why would you not just stay with your current program and do it at the end of the season? You're giving up, even if you're not playing, whatever the reason is, you're giving up valuable practice time. You're kind of leaving your player, your
teammates,
your teammates in a lurch, depending upon what your situation is. And I don't know. I'm not sure it's a really good look. But then again, I'm not a student athlete, and I'm sure that there's reasons for each individual making the decision. So to circle back around, the NLI, that really only applies, correct me if I'm wrong, to the high school kids, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
You don't have to sign an NLI coming out of the transfer portal. You just got to sign the agreement that you're coming out of the transfer portal and I'm going to play for school X. And so with the impact that the portal has had on recruiting, meaning all those players that you're bringing in from the portal to make your numbers are all those numbers that you're not recruiting from the high school ranks. So I'm not sure why that decision was made, because I don't know, is it having that much of an effect on college football or college basketball or college baseball recruiting? I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. That came fast and furious. It kind of seemed like a couple of weeks ago you heard the first rumors of, they may take away the NLI, and then boom, there it is down the stretch. I got another quick one for you. It's been all over sports media topics, and we're picking the Ole Miss game in our pick six. What are your thoughts on faking injuries to slow the other team down? And I put them both in quotation marks because it seems like it's getting to be a real problem. Shane Beamer mentioned it. He was very displeased with and it's pretty blatant. If it's done, I guess in well enough, the acting job, I can't say anything. But when you're literally like, hey, you go down. Oh, me? Oh. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you think the NCAA can do to either help or prevent this situation? I've heard some people say once you're down and medical personnel come out or the trainers, you have to miss the rest of the drive. I know it's a long-winded question, but what are your thoughts on that? Because it's getting to be a little ridiculous in some games.
Well, what you just said, and I was listening to one of the, I forget what channel it is on Sirius XM, either yesterday or today, and they were talking about this exact scenario. What should the ramifications be for situations like that? And that was one of the things that came up. If you go down and force the officials to call an injury timeout, whether you're injured or not, seriously or not, you're out for X amount of plays.
Yep.
or X amount of series or whatever it is. To go above and beyond that, I don't know any of the officials personally, and I don't know if any of them have medical training and are doctors in their day jobs and they do officiating, in their off work hours. But if a guy goes down and one or two trainers from the sports medicine staff come out and they're, sometimes it's cramps, that they've got to go out and take care of. You really have to take it on a case-by-case basis unless they make the decision that no matter what it is, cramps, serious injury, if it's a serious injury, you're going to be out for, a little while anyway. No matter what it is, injury-wise, real or perceived to be not real, then you're going to miss X amount of plays following that official's injury timeout. And you also want to charge that team with one of their timeouts as well.
Well, I was thinking about that. I don't know when, but what if they, because you're not going to be able to practically say they're on the field, on the sideline, yes, this is a real injury, or no, this is a fake injury. So why not give them like 2 extra timeouts per game and say, if your player is on the field injured, it's going to cost you a timeout. We've give you the extra timeout. So I think that would cut back on the fake injury more than anything, because those timeouts can be pretty valuable.
But if you give them 2 more timeouts, would they make sure they just go ahead and use them?
Well, if they use them up, then at the end of the game, when they're sitting there trying to stop the clock, they're not going to have them. I'm just saying it should cost the team, or like you were saying, the player something. But who knows what? It can't be something where they try to check the player, because you can't determine that in that short period of time.
Right. What official is going to be able to walk over?
Yeah, that's real.
Unless it's really obvious.
Yeah.
To be able to to be able to discern whether or not it's a real injury, or they were just shaken up a little bit.
Yeah. Just don't let my dad be that ref, because he will have them doing laps to walk it off.
The controversy will definitely come if a rule is presented when a kid is really hurt and a referee thought he was faking it or whatever. So it's good. It's a slippery slope. I just figured I'd ask you because it's becoming more of a pandemic than it's ever been in college football. So, well, Larry, Wayne, any final thoughts before we let Dave Cohen out of here?
We're good.
Yeah, we're good, man.
Well, Dave, give our listeners a quick shout out on how they can hear the Panther Insider podcast and the call Saturday afternoon.
Well, we have a brand new Panther Insider podcast that just came out, late yesterday, early today. Had a chance to talk to running back Freddie Brock, the transfer from Maine, who had that fantastic bowl game last year, and Gavin Pringle, who was recently named a semifinalist for the William V. Campbell Trophy, which at the end of the year honors whoever is selected an outstanding student athlete. And I emphasize student athlete. Gavin's already graduated from Georgia State and is working on his master's in sports administration, so he's a perfect candidate. Both of them, both Freddie and Gavin, great kids. It was great to talk to them. That's available at georgiastatesports.com. It's also on my Twitter and Facebook for anybody that wants to keep up with what we're doing down at Georgia State. But Saturday, airtime 3 o'clock on our 50,000-watt flagship, 88.5 FM WRAS, 97.5 WGTJ, Gainesville, Georgia. You can also listen via the GSU Athletics mobile app, TuneInRadio.com, TuneIn Radio app on your iPhone or iPad. And also online, we have a fantastic relationship with lowcountryradio.com out of Savannah, Georgia. And so all you got to do, if you're on your laptop or you're on your iPad or your phone for that matter, you can just go to www.lowcountryradio.com and click listen here, and Harper and I will be there. But looking forward to it. 3 o'clock airtime, 3:30 kick. And like I said, no one game is necessarily more important, but I would rather go to Huntington next Thursday night at 3-2 than having lost 2 in a row and be 2-3. And that's just me, the radio crew. And I'm sure everybody over at Center Park Credit Union Stadium would agree with me.
Oh, we're in agreement here at ATL Prime Sports as Panther fans as well, Dave. So go Panthers. Have a great call Saturday afternoon. We'll be catching it. And Dave, we'll talk to you next week on the Dave Cohen Report. Have a good call, Dave.
All right, you too, JJ, and appreciate you having me on, and good talking to you guys as always.
All right.
Always,
Appreciate
Dave.
you, man.
Again, Dave Cohen, voice of the Georgia State Panthers. You can catch Dave on X at GA State Voice. Folks, quick breaking news. The Mets beat the Phillies and pulled the old switcheroo. National League cannot figure out how to National League can't figure out how to win those sitting out games, as I call them, where you sit for a week. National League can't figure it out. Mets move on, 4-1 final there. Guys, let's go from college football to more college football. We're into our pick six. We picked 6 football games from the upcoming week. Wednesday's spreads are from ESPNBet.com. And our 6 games this week are Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Oregon, Ole Miss, LSU, Lions and Cowboys, Falcons, Panthers, and Bills and Jets. And we'll go ahead and break those down after we get into our quick record update. Larry, after a 4-2 week, another good week, took a 1-game lead over Wayne. You're 25-16 in that one measly push for us all. 24-17-1 for Wayne after a 3-3 week. Todd went 2-4 last week, dropping to 17-24-1. Now, I finally had a good week. Went 4-2 last week, moved to 16-25-1. And let's go ahead and get into it. Our first game again, number 1, Texas 5-0 versus number 18, Oklahoma 4-1. Texas is 15-point favorites. The over-under is 50.5. Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ABC. The Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas is where this game will be played. The first time these two teams are meeting as SEC foes. Battle of the Golden Hat. Larry, what you got?
It's still the Red River Shootout, regardless of where you're going to play the game at. Here's my thing about this whole football game. If Quinn Ewers is given the green light to play, I'm going with Oklahoma, because from what I have seen, this Texas offense looked like under Arch Manning. Under Arch, they look like a well-oiled machine. And I do believe, usually a spread that big, I would drop it all over Oklahoma. Unfortunately, we don't know yet, because it's still early, who's going to get the start. My gut tells me it's going to be Quinn. And if it's going to be Quinn, then I'm going with Oklahoma. Because with him under center, rusty, hadn't played in a few weeks, trying to get back in the swing of things, especially under a big rival game, big TV crowd, big stadium, the environment, which that ain't going to bother him. No, he's a senior, for God's sakes. The whole point is, you've seen what they look like under Arch. you kind of hate to break the momentum, but you want to be loyal to a person not to be able to lose a starting job due to injury. So, long story short version, I think Quinn's going to get the nod. I think Sark's going to be loyal to him, and if so, give me Oklahoma in the points.
Ooh, a shocker to start it out. Wayne, what say you?
Double shock. I'm taking Oklahoma in the points too. You can't give me 15. Both of these teams are pretty good. You'd like to think that Texas is going to be like undefeated in the SEC. How could they have ever pulled that off? But I just think Oklahoma with those points is going to be the better pick.
Boy, Todd is taking the Longhorns, hook 'em horns. And I'll tell you why I'm taking the horns. Let me tell you why. Texas has a top 7 offense averaging over 45 points per game, doing well with or without Ewers. Difference of 1 touchdown pass. Look, Arch Manning at times looked a little human last week against Mississippi State, ended up getting the job done. But look, Texas's defense is for real. 7.0 points per game thus far, and top 2 in the country. They played some pretty good opponents. Michigan played an SEC game already. So I like Texas in this one. I think Oklahoma has struggled on offense, averaging just over 28 points a game. I think that's going to be the difference. I think this will be a shootout. As you mentioned, the Red River shootout, I think that's exactly what this will be. And I do think Ewers gets back on track early and gets the golden hat back to Norman. Remember, in the last Big 12 game last year, Oklahoma shocked the world. I don't see it happening 2 years in a row. I'm taking hook 'em horns in Dallas to cover the 15-point spread. I think they'll pull away and win by about 17, 18 points late. I think it'll be a close game till the very end, and then they'll pull away with the touchdown. Again, 2 Texases, Todd and I, 2 Oklahomas. That means it's going to be a heck of a ball game. Our second game, the number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes, 5-0, travel to Autzen Stadium to take on the Oregon Ducks, the number 3 team in the land at 5-0. Ohio State is a 3-point road favorite. Over-under in this one's 53 and a hook. 7:30 p.m. on NBC, as Howard Stern would say it. Look, Ohio State has lost 4 straight times versus AP top 3 ranked teams. 3 of those are Michigan. 1 of those is the Dogs. This isn't either one of those teams. I think running back Travion Henderson leads the big. He does. I don't think. I know he leads the Big Ten in yards per rush at 8-0, and pair that alongside Juckins, who's second in the Big Ten, right behind him at 7.8 yards per carry. So I like the 1-2 punch. That should open up the play action pass, the explosive plays that we were used to seeing from the Buckeyes. 29 explosive plays. Explosive plays, folks, are 20-plus yards. So I like to see the explosive plays. I think Jeremiah Smith gets involved in this one. OSU's offensive line is very underrated. They are really good, only giving up 4 sacks on the young season. I think Will Howard's going to have time to find those receivers. And again, Ibuka, freshman phenom Jeremiah Smith, he's right up there with Ryan Williams' talent. I like the Buckeyes. I like the Buckeyes big. I predicted the Buckeyes on this show right here to be your national champions. I think they expect a big win in Columbus. The fans, that is. I think Buckeyes big, as my 4-year-old would say. Larry, what you got?
I like everything that you said. The only difference is Dan Lanning has fared very well in matchups against top 5 opponents, regardless of where he's been at. Dan Lanning has always found a way to keep things close. And if anybody knows that Buckeye defense and offense like the knot on the back of his head, it is Coach Lanning. And I'm pretty sure he is still having nightmares over what he saw when he was the defensive coordinator with the then Bulldogs, about what Ohio State did to his defense and chopping them up. That being said, Ohio State's just too good, man. They're just too good, and we talk about what Will Howard's doing, but Ohio State's defense has been lights out so far this season. I mean, they have been absolutely phenomenal on the defensive side of the football. And as much as my heart wants to pick Oregon, I got to go with the Buckeyes, and I can't stand them. But, man, give me Ohio State. I don't think it's going to be big, but I do think they're going to win.
Yeah, the only reason I say big is because of Judkins and Henderson, man. I just don't know if Oregon has the depth to take on a battering ram like that. We will see. It should be a heck of a ball game for a while. I just think I think the depth overplays here. Wayne, what say you?
I'm taking Ohio State because I don't feel like I could trust Oregon to win a game like this.
And that's another thing, I picked Oregon twice last year against Washington, and it's kind of still in the back of my mind. So Todd is also taking the Buckeyes. So I hate it when we all take one team. It makes me feel like I should go the opposite way, but I'm standing firm. I'm putting 10 toes down. I'm taking the Buckeyes. So a clean sweep with the Buckeyes across the board in Autzen Stadium Saturday night. Our other Saturday night game is a huge rivalry. The number 9 Ole Miss Rebels travel to Death Valley at 5-1 and take on the number 13 LSU Tigers. They're 4-1. Mississippi, a road 3.5-point favorite. Over under in this one, extremely high, our highest on the board all week, 63 and the hook. This is also at 7:30 p.m. on ABC. LSU is coming off a bye week. Wayne, what say you, man? What you got?
LSU at home is always tough. And I, like Larry, I don't really like this team, and I never have. But in the interest of competing, I'm going to have to take LSU in the points on this one.
Wayne, Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, man. Here's my thing. Jackson Dart was able to get back off the snide after what the performance we saw against Kentucky. We saw him get back into his regular groove, but this game, I believe, is going to be absolutely bananas on the offensive side of both football. I think this is going to be high scoring. I think it's going to be an electric environment. I've seen what both teams are able to do, but there is something about playing in Death Valley on a Saturday night that calls upon the Avengers when it's an LSU team. And it doesn't matter how good or bad it is. You could have an LSU team that is extremely subpar, and they play a night game on a Saturday night, and they look like the second coming of the 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers. But long story short version, man, give me the Tigers, and I think it's going to be where it's going to be close at the end, and a stupid either penalty or a fumble or one of those costly mistakes is going to cost Ole Miss at the end of this game, and LSU may not necessarily take down the goalpost and go down the middle of Baton Rouge with it, but give me LSU to come away and pull this game out, man.
Yeah, if they take down them goalposts, you can look for them up in a pawn shop up here in Memphis. Big Daddy's Pawn, that's where they'll be.
The two LSU in the points. Go ahead and make it 3. I'm taking the Tigers in the points, a home underdog, and Todd is taking Ole Miss to cover the 3.5-point spread. I'm with you. I share very similar sentiment as you do, Larry. I think it's going to be an extremely high-scoring game. Both these teams come in needing a win in the SEC, and look, I think it's going to come down to this. Ole Miss is the top 10 offense, 44 points a game, and third in defense. But I don't know who they've played that's really an effective offensive opponent. They're, again, third in the country in total defense, 7.5 points per game. But, again, playing at LSU at night, it's one of the hardest places to play in college football. And LSU can throw the ball around. I think they're a top 10 passing offense in the country. And I like Brian Kelly at home. I do. I like the Tigers at home. Fans have had all day to drink and get lubricated up for this one. And, again, it's a rivalry game. And I think LSU gets it done at home. And, again, a home dog. You know I love home dogs. If I have a reason to take one, I'm taking one all the time. So give me LSU and those points. Again, Todd took Ole Miss to cover. That finishes up our college games. Let's move to our fourth game, our first NFL game. The 3-1 Lions travel to Arlington, Texas to take on the Dallas Cowboys. They're 3-2. Detroit is a 3-point road favorite. Might have foreshadowed who I'm taking. Over under in that one's 52.5. Sunday, 4:25 p.m. on Fox. I'll tee this one off. It's pretty easy. I love me a home underdog in the NFL. Give me them Cowboys and them points at home. I think Dak Prescott's a very underrated quarterback at times in this league. Is he good? Not in the playoffs, but in the regular season, he gets the job done. I think a little bit more run game. Cowboys fans would love that. It's not the Ezekiel Elliott of old, but the Dowell.
Rico Dowdle.
The ball right, and again, they can throw the top off the ball. I think CeeDee Lamb really has a breakout game. He hasn't quite had one yet this season. I think he has a big, huge 110, 120-yard game, maybe 6, 8 catches, throw in a couple touchdowns there. I like the Cowboys at home. This is a real tough game to pick. I wanted to go with the Lions because they're playing extremely well. But this is a game we could see later on in the season in the playoffs. But yeah, I like a home underdog. Give me the Cowboys in Jerry World, 4:25 on Fox. I feel like they have a pretty good record. I'll take Dak and the Cowboys. Wayne, what say you?
I'm going to take the Lions in this one, just because I feel like the Cowboys have been a tad flaky, and they don't seem to be playing like a team that's wanting to support each other. I feel like they're playing like individuals on the same team, whereas Detroit and even Atlanta to some extent, I feel like they're playing as a team wanting to do better for each other instead of for themselves.
Good point. Larry, what say you, my friend?
Give me the Lions. Give me the Lions. And I'm going to tell you why. Detroit's coming off a bye week. Jared Goff is coming off of probably one of the most electric performances in his entire career where he goes perfect in an NFL football game. Dan Campbell has probably got, if not the best, the second best defense in all of football. Listen, the connection that Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown have been able to develop has been just absolutely wonderful. The dual backfield in the back, man, and give me the local kid, Jahmyr Gibbs, representing Dalton, Georgia, and the way he's been able to perform as well. But my key to it is kind of like what Wayne has been saying, man. You can start seeing the tension between CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. You can see how awful this Dallas defense has been since Dan Quinn left to become the head coach of the Washington Commanders. You can start seeing what I call rips in the fabric of the continuity of this team. And until Coach McCarthy gets them boys back on schedule and they develop some kind of a running attack, I just don't see it happening for them boys. Detroit's defense is way too good. And it is what it is, man. Give me the Lions and let's roll.
Yeah, Todd's taking his hometown Lions as well. The only reason I went, one, the home dog, and two, I'm just expecting this offense to break out of its shell and this just be a shootout type of game, and whoever has the ball last wins. That's the only reason I took Dallas. They're kind of banged up too. Michael Parsons is out, so everything leans towards the Lions. But in the NFL, it's next man up, and home field advantage is pretty big in the NFL in terms of foot swings. So it's really tough. This was a coin flip game. Go ahead, Wayne.
You did put me down for Lions, right?
I did.
Good. Excellent. All right, and what has TC decided he wants to do?
He went with his hometown Lions as well. If he was on here, I'd call him a homer. All right, our fifth game. Falcons are technically in prime time on Sunday, 4:25 on Fox. Rarely do you see the Falcons in this window on a Sunday, especially for the Carolina Panthers game. But the Panthers are beat up. They held 6 players out of practice Wednesday afternoon, including their center, Austin Corbett, and even their backup center is questionable. But it is just a question of who's going to snap the ball to either Bryce Young or Andy Dalton, whoever they decide to give the start to. And I think it's just going to be a real tough time for the Carolina Panthers. Again, I love a home dog, but not when it's going to be Bryce Young or Andy Dalton taking snaps behind a makeshift offensive line in the NFL. I think Judon gets going. I think Grady Jarrett gets going. I think we finally see the sack come. And I think they come in a huge number. I think the Falcons are going to get 3 or 4 of them on Sunday. One of those is going to be for a strip sack, maybe even a touchdown there. So if you have the Falcons in fantasy defense, give them a pickup. Again, Panthers are bringing back the black helmets versus the Dirty Birds. I thought this was kind of a cool stat. They are 2-0 in those black helmets. Both those wins, well, they're against our Dirty Birds, fellas. So that's about the only thing Carolina has going for it. But again, that won't matter. I think Kirk Cousins is going to spread the rock around as he did last week. Seven different Falcons caught passes from Kirk Cousins last week, kind of looking like the Matt Ryan days. So I like the Falcons. I like the Falcons by double digits, folks. I think the Falcons firmly implant themselves atop the NFC South and say, hey, we're here to blow the door off the hinges right here in this division. Falcons, big on Sunday. Larry, what you got?
Yeah, man, I'm going Dirty Birds as well. I think anytime, and we saw this even with the Falcons just a couple of weeks ago, anytime you're dealing with injuries across the offensive line, man, it makes it very difficult to get your offense going. Even if you do have a veteran quarterback in the Red Rocket himself, Andy Dalton, it gets to be a point to where it's just too big to overcome when you got the likes of Judon, Jarrett, Carter, Onyemata, and it's just relentless, but not even that. When you got Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates patrolling the defensive secondary, man, and they've been playing so well here lately. It's great to see the evolution of how Jimmy Lake's defense is coming with Atlanta. So I won't go into a whole bunch of analysis, but give me them Dirty Birds.
Dirty Birds. Wayne, why are you taking the Falcons?
I'm taking the Falcons because the Panthers just don't seem up to it. And the only other thing on this game is I would say that over/under. You should bet under on that.
Ooh,
because I think it's
a lopsided game.
I just don't think that the Panthers are going to score that much, and I think they're going to try to stop Atlanta. But I think Atlanta's going to score, of course, the majority of the points. That's why I'm picking.
Yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned the spread or not. Atlanta 6-point favorites. 46.5 is the over/under. Falcons 2-3. Panthers are 1-4. Final game of the Pick Six. The 3-2 Bills travel to East Rutherford, New Jersey, to take on the New York Jets, who are 2-3 and a freshly fired football coach. Buffalo 2.5-point road favorites. Over/under in this one's 40 and a hook. It's Monday Night Football, 8:15 on the old ESPN. Jets interim head coach, former defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. Bills lost 2 in a row. The third best offense in terms of points per game. They get back on track, man. I'm going to keep this simple. Bills, big. It's tough to break in a new interim coach in a short turnaround. Primetime game. Aaron Rodgers. The whole offense just looks stagnant. They're going to have to really just keep it simple. Stupid is one of the best things. Run the ball, throw short, get the ball to Wilson, get the ball to your playmakers and see what they do. But I think Buffalo, losing 2 straight, they're going to be ready to get back right on the track. I gotta take the Bills in this one, guys. Bills cover. Wayne, what say you?
I'm taking the Bills to cover too because I feel like they're going to be able to bounce back a lot better than the Jets will at this point. Because just like a basketball, if it's fully inflated, it bounces back. If it's deflated, it's not. And I feel like the Jets are deflated right now.
I like it. Larry, what you got?
Jets fired the wrong guy.
Yeah.
They fired the wrong guy. They should have fired.
Did his name start? Did his name start with A?
Yeah.
I agree. I think the offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett should have gotten the X-May.
Yeah, Hackett should have got the hatchet. That's the whole thing. I mean,
are they acting like he's going to be the new coach too?
Man,
or at least for one game.
Wayne, I would have never even imagined that Breece Hall would be as low on the totem pole as he is in rushing yards. I would have never imagined Garrett Wilson would be as low as he is on the totem pole in receiving yards when you got the weapons that the Jets offense has. And even with Aaron Rodgers being as old as he is, you would think at some point that they would develop some kind of chemistry, at least at this point in the season, and it would click. Dude, it is very hard to deal with when you got weapons that are underperforming and you as a head coach have to be the scapegoat for it. Yeah. So, long story short, give me the Bills Mafia. James Cook. You got Josh Allen. Guys, they get back on track. Defense with Ed Oliver just continues to come through week after week after week. And I know they're upset at the couple of performances that they had against Houston because they gave that game away, and of course the performance that we saw against Baltimore. I'm like you, JJ. They get back on track. They get this. This is going to be, and I hate to use this terminology because there's never really any quote unquote easy wins in the NFL. But I think this is going to be a pretty comfortable win. Give me the Bills, and I think they win by 10 plus.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. And Todd shares the same. Bills cover. That's a clean sweep on the Bills. And it's just, again, it's tough to win at this highest level when it wasn't just solid. It wasn't just solid. It was all the way down. You could see these players dejected on the sidelines. Defense wasn't playing. Offense wasn't pass protecting. I mean, it's just atrocious, and I don't see that getting fixed by an interim head coach anytime soon. Maybe next week, maybe the week after they settle down and get going a little bit, but not this week, not versus a divisional opponent in the Buffalo Bills, because nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. Guys, that wraps up our Pick 6. If you like the content, please give us a like and a subscribe. It's free of charge. Hit the notification button so you get notified when our latest content is. And help us keep this thing going along. Guys, our final thought for the night. Mine's short, sweet, and simple. The fact that Caitlin Clark wasn't a unanimous Rookie of the Year is a complete joke. That's it. That's my final thought. I'd like to know who the person that didn't vote for her is, because I don't think there's another answer. If Angel Reese finished the season, you have a little bit of an argument. But she didn't finish the season. Unfortunately, Angel was hurt. Caitlin finished the season, took her team to the playoff for the first time in quite a while. Should have been unanimous. That's my final thought. Larry, what say you?
Ladies and gentlemen, the number one overall pick of the 2024 NBA draft resides in Atlanta. And nobody is saying a word about Zachary Ricochet, who quietly performed with 18 points, 3 or 4 from deep, great shooting exhibition, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, great chemistry with Trae Young. Y'all, I'm telling you right now, ain't nobody going to say a word about it. But I'm telling y'all right now, the Hawks will not only be in the playoffs, but the Hawks are going to make some noise. Look for the Hawks to have a top 4 seed. Yes, I'm calling it right now. A top 4 seed with breakout seasons from not only Zachary Ricochet as a rookie, but Jalen Johnson coming into his own. Ladies and gentlemen, Trae Young is about to show the world why he's been overlooked, why he's been snubbed, and why he is not being able to get the recognition he deserves as one of the top elite point guards in the NBA. It is really about to be like it was in the 80s, a reemergence, a renaissance of Atlanta's Air Force. Y'all watch. This was going to be fun.
I like it. Yeah, NBA tip-off right around the corner just in a couple of weeks. Wayne, your final thought, man. Send us off, buddy. Oh, you're muted.
I got a phone call and I muted it and then I forgot to unmute it. Anyway, next week I will be out of town in Charlotte, and so the show here will either be on Spaces or we'll all just go somewhere and do something else. Who knows? So look for that change, and we'll keep it posted on the Twitter and all that stuff so that y'all know where the next show will be.
Absolutely. And folks, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. And enjoy your weekend at college football. Should be another great weekend. And for Larry in Adairsville, Wayne in Memphis, I'm JJ right here in Lilburn. We'll talk to you guys next week. Good night, everybody. Get you one.